imposter syndrome. I feel imposter syndrome all the time. If you're wondering what I'm doing, I am setting up my tens machine because I am roughly about 7 weeks into a flare-up, and this is my this is my line of defense. My last method of pain relief is now my tens machine, and I'm hoping that will just destroy some of the neuropathic messages which cause the pain in the first place. But this is it. This is my last line of management, and it's just to give me some sort of space between me and this incessant pain. I stuck all my pads on. Have I stuck all my pads on? I feel like I've stuck all my pads on. 1, 2, 3, 4. But back to what I was talking about. I have just had a fresh dose of imposter syndrome delivered to the studio. Actually arrived just in time for me having to make the decision on whether or not I should film this particular video for you. And it got me thinking about all the different ways imposter syndrome comes at me, stops me on my track, and paralyzes me whenever I really want to try something new, create something fresh. And so I wanted to know your opinion on something that I've been thinking about, because I think that imposter syndrome might be at the root of all the things I feel inadequate about when it comes to my brand, when it comes to putting a product out there, when it comes to talking about what I do in front of people who have no idea of who I am. And so I want to know what you think. Do you think imposter syndrome could be or is the number one, the biggest killer of creativity for artists and creative entrepreneurs? Let's break this down. Let's talk about this.
Shantell's Breakdown.
So what is the definition of imposter syndrome? I guess we should start by understanding exactly what it is. I am preoccupied with this and making myself some bakes in the oven. And so I'm going to insert a little bit right here of me looking on the internet and giving you a proper description of imposter syndrome. Here. I'm on my laptop, and Wikipedia has a definition for imposter syndrome. So Wiki says, imposter syndrome, also known as imposter phenomenon, imposterism, fraud syndrome, or the imposter experience, is a psychological pattern in which an individual doubts their skills, talents, or accomplishments and has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. Despite external evidence of their competence, those experiencing this phenomenon remain convinced that they are frauds and do not deserve all they have achieved. Been there. That is a very succinct definition of imposter syndrome. I had no idea that there was other names for it, like fraud or phenomenon. But I know that that's exactly how I feel. There is a huge amount of doubt that runs through my body when I'm about to embark on something. For me personally, it's usually when I'm about to do something that I've never done before, as opposed to do something that I have done before and might be trying a different way of executing it. That's me personally, but that my imposter syndrome definitely rears its ugly head when I'm about to try something new. So it says here, individuals with imposterism incorrectly attribute their success to luck or the Matthew effect. I don't know what the Matthew effect is. Who the frick is Matthew? Or they incorrectly interpret it as a result of deceiving others into thinking they are more intelligent than they perceive themselves to be. Nah, that feels like something else. Like, no shade on Wiki, but that feels like that feels like a very that feels like a little bit extreme. Like I'm not out here trying to, what do they say? Deceive anyone. I'm not out here trying to deceive anyone, but I do honestly feel like someone is like watching my every move and is just kind of gonna jump out of the shadows and say, yo, I see what you're doing. I see you. I see you. I see you. You don't know what you're talking about here. You don't know what you're talking about here. You don't know what you're talking about. Why are you talking about this? I can see this. I know you don't know what you're talking about here. Everybody, imposter. That's basically how I feel. Imposter syndrome also occurs in normal human to human relationships. Based on this syndrome, continuing doubts about people and individual defense mechanisms are considered difficult to achieve healthy relationships. Do I feel like an imposter in my relationships with people? Maybe, but that's not really where I was going with this video. So let's move on. Imposter syndrome also occurs in the context of mental illness and its treatment. Certain individuals may see themselves as less ill, depressed, less anxious than their peers or mentally ill people, citing their lack of severe symptoms as an indication of no or minor underlying issues. People with this form often do not seek help for their issues because they see their problems as not worthy of psychiatric attention. Alright. Yeah. Okay. I feel this one. I feel this one from the point of view where it comes to um my DDD. So for years I have spent an inordinate amount of time because I've been managing chronic pain for this year. 2022 will make 16 years, and one of the problems that I have is trying to get doctors to believe that I'm actually in pain. And I've never had any counseling for my DD. I've never spoken to anybody. And I know I should because it has severely impacted my life. Everything is sort of centered around this disability. I can't do anything. I can't plan anything. I have to cancel things. If my DDD is flaring up, I have to cancel a ton of things. I can't do anything. I can't move on. So basically, I'm at the whim of how bad my back feels at any one particular given time. So but I know that having therapy would be very helpful for me. And whilst I do would like therapy, part of me does feel that I'm kind of, I should be able to sort of like work my way through it. It's part of, I know it's a weird feeling, but part of me feels like I shouldn't be taking up the time of another person talking about like pain. Like, what would I spend? I don't know how long a therapy session is, but let's say it's about 45 minutes to an hour. What would I spend 45 minutes to an hour talking to a perfect stranger about in terms of pain? It just seems weird to me. I don't really feel like I would have anything to say. Anyway, I need like a really good setting, like, ease that out. Let's try this one. Ooh. Ooh. So like, I think like I feel imposter syndrome all the time. Like even down to doing these videos on YouTube, I often feel like um, I shouldn't be doing them because I can't imagine my having the same kind of accomplishments that other video creators have in here. You know, the ones that are like amassing like 100,000, 200,000, even a million. Like my aim is not to get to any one target number of subscribers, but when you do start out on YouTube and you start to take it seriously, as I am trying to do, you are preoccupied a little bit with your numbers. You're always watching your analysis and looking to see whether or not your subscriber count goes up or goes down. As of a couple of days ago, I lost a subscriber, which I know is a good thing because it means that you're now like whittling down your subscribers to your core audience who wants to see and hear what you have to say. But it's still, heartbreaking knowing that when you've got a small number and it gets even smaller, you do question whether or not you should probably be doing this thing in the first place. So that's why I try not to focus on the numbers, because focusing on the numbers makes me feel like I really don't have anything to offer here. Everything that I'm saying is, well, no, I know not everything I'm saying is garbage, but it's just not anything anybody needs, which I know isn't true because I have received really lovely feedback from different artists on this particular video, the review that I did of the cartridge paper. I really helped people. I helped people move the needle on their decision making, and comments like that do keep you going. And it's good to remember that you are helping people, and this is why you started your channel in the first place. Looking back at those comments really do help. But if you're doing videos and you have no comments under the videos, it can be a little bit difficult to keep your motivation going. Also, if you are creating a product, as I also am, and you haven't got any feedback on that yet, it also can be hard to feel like this is the place where you're supposed to be. I'm supposed to be right here making these things for the good of all the people I probably will never meet that will buy my things. This is my gift and I want to package it up into this thing and I want to send it out into the world and do that. But then the doubts can kind of start to creep in and you start to think about whether or not, you really know what you're doing. Are you using the right methods? Is there a strategy that you should be employing that you're not employing? That's the first signs of, those are symptoms of imposter syndrome. And, like, those are the feelings that I feel when I'm doing videos on YouTube. On the website, the Muse, I've never been on this website before. I just chose it randomly because it had the word Muse in it, and I felt like this website probably gets us, us creatives. They have an article called 5 Different Types of Imposter Syndrome and 5 Ways to Battle Each One, which I thought was interesting to see how someone has identified the 5 different, you know, feelings of inadequacy. And here it says there is the perfectionist. Perfectionism and imposter syndrome goes hand in hand, and that the perfectionist has excessively high goals for themselves, and when they fail to reach this goal, they experience major self-doubt and worry about measuring up. Whether they realize it or not, this group can also be control freaks, feeling like if they want something done right, they have to do it themselves. Yeah, I can see with that. Yeah, alright, perfectionist. The second type is the Superwoman or Superman. People who experience this phenomenon are convinced they're phonies amongst real deal colleagues. They often push themselves to work harder and harder to measure up, but this is just a false cover-up for their insecurities, and their work overload may harm not only their own mental health but their relationship with others. This is not something I can attest to. I can't relate to this, but if you do, go ahead in the comments and let me know if you're a Superman or a Superwoman. The natural genius. I like where this is going. So, the natural genius, These types of people believe they need to be a natural genius. No, I didn't know it was going to go that way. So these type of imposters judge their competence-based ease and speed as opposed to their efforts. In other words, if they take a long time to master something, they feel shame. These type of imposters set their internal bar impossibly high, just like perfectionists, but natural genius types don't just judge themselves based on ridiculous expectations. They also judge themselves based on getting things right on the first try. When they are not able to do something quickly or fluently, their alarm bells sound. Ooh, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. This is something I experience when I'm learning a new skill. I would definitely describe myself as a very highly skilled illustrator, and I would say I'm a very highly skilled designer. But if I'm taking on a completely new skill, and it's something physical, yes, I do often get the Debbie Downers if I feel like it's taken me a really long time to just understand something, or to be able to unpack something, or get my body to move in a way in which I want it to move. So let's say like martial arts, you've got to learn like forms, you're trying to build up some muscle memory. Yeah, in those kind of circumstances, yeah, you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. Number 4, the soloists. Sufferers who feel as though asking for help reveals their phoniness. It's okay to be independent, but not to the extent that you refuse assistance so that you can prove your worth. Ooh, does that sound like you? I wouldn't say that I'm a soloist necessarily. I mean, I basically do a lot of things myself. But I've always put that down to the fact that like I have a very long history of art and design. Like I studied art and design for many years. That's like more years than I studied fashion. And it's an independent study. So you are encouraged to go out and do things for yourself and do your own research and take yourself to galleries and such. So I mean, I just find it difficult to ask for help from people generally, because I find that people are really shoddy in really like being there for me. So I don't know. The expert. Experts, I feel like this is going to hit home. Experts measure their competence based on what and how much they know or can do. Believing they will never know enough, they fear being exposed as an inexperienced or unknowledgeable. Yeah, nah, for real though, I'm not even gonna lie. This one is a bit me. This one is a bit me for real. Because for many years, if somebody like, no, this one is a bit me. So I have like not so much in the last few years because I've made peace with this, but I am somebody who prides myself in, well, somebody who used to pride herself in knowing a little bit about everything, and I just thought it was useful. Like I thought it was a social skill, so I could be in any environment and feel like I would have something to say to meeting strangers, so it wouldn't be difficult for me to communicate with a stranger. So if I was going to a networking group, I could always sort of like start chit chat. I'm a waffler. I can make friends wherever I go. You know what I mean? Like I'm sociable in that sense. However, many times I've been talking to friends and they've brought up a subject, a name, a euphemism, something, and they've said to me, "Do you know what that is?" And not to appear stupid, I've just been like, yeah, I've heard of that. Never hearing of it. I was that person for many years. Now I see the fun and the importance of saying I don't know. I'm much more at peace and at ease with not being the smartest person in the room. Maybe I'm being unfair to myself, but I am definitely much more at peace and at ease with saying, I just don't know this thing. Tell me about it. You know what I mean? Educate me. But yeah, for years, I would just never let anyone know I didn't know what they were talking about. This was pre Google, so you can imagine the struggle. I'm really good at being spontaneous. Huh. However, I know from my past experience that if I have to be too organized and know exactly what it is I want to talk about, I find it difficult to produce a video that feels really natural and organic. And I really like just turning on my voice recorder, which is an app here somewhere, and just recording how I'm feeling. And when I listen back to those recordings, they sound pretty good. There's lots of jam-packed information in there. There's some good shit. And so I wanted to experiment with doing that same kind of off-the-cuff riffing for YouTube videos, or YouTube videos for the future, because like I said, I have this flare up and it is pulling me away from being able to do all the things. I actually recorded a video a couple days ago talking about this. I've made some progress in terms of, I keep looking in the wrong place. I've made some progress in terms of my patterns for the tops, which you'll see in following videos. You'll see I've cut patterns, I've finalized patterns, and I have started to make some things, but I've had to cancel the last the last bit of work that I've got in this collection. I've had to cancel one of the designs that I'm doing. I was meant to draft a pattern a couple weeks ago, and I haven't been able to do it because this flare up has just been a little too much, and I've told myself I need to just calm down a little bit. I've had to cancel editing videos and putting them up to give you some idea on what's going on in the studio. I had to cancel doing that because it's hard for me to sit upright in a chair. What other things have I had to cancel? And so I had the bright idea of just turning on the camera whenever there is something that I want to talk about. And this is that video. I've just turned on the camera and started talking because I was about to talk to myself about it, and I said, hey, how about we try and capture this? Don't worry too much about how it's being executed. Just try and capture all the juice, all the knowledge as it's coming out, and try and get it onto video, which means that my video quality is not that great, or not that great as I know it can be, because I'm using the reverse camera. You know that camera where you flip it over and you can see yourself? I'm using that camera, that side of my camera, because it makes it easier for me to see what's in shot, but it takes down the resolution. It takes it down a couple of notches. But this is the way I've got to do it. And so at this point, I've got to decide whether or not what I have to say is more important than the way it's presented to you. That moment, that decision, that stance between, am I doing something extraordinary, or am I doing something that will possibly, like, will I crash and burn? Standing in between that decision is a symptom of imposter syndrome. Do I try something new, or do I do what everybody else does but stumble along and it may take a little longer to do? This is imposter syndrome. I'll go get my jumper. I've got to put this around my waist so it keeps the pads firmly stuck to my skin. Hold on. It's only because I don't have any connective gel, so I use a waist warmer to do the job. So I guess I would say that working through your imposter syndrome is deciding what is the best course of action for me to take for the greater good. Okay, you can see me. And that's what I had to decide. In a split second, I had to decide, what is the greater good? Me giving you this information or me not? And I chose you. I made you the greater good. Henceforth, here is a video Might be a little jalopified, but here is a video. So, what's the greater good when it comes to the work that we produce? Well, if we just wanted to do our work as a hobby, then we would be the greater good. It would be things that we do, things that we make, things that we execute, time that we take to find ways to produce an image, an object, a thing that brings us joy personally whenever we touch it, whenever we design it. It amplifies our vibration and it brings us joy. That's the greater good for ourselves, to take us to a frequency where we feel no resistance and no doubt, because doubt has no space inside of a space where non resistance resides. But when we decide that we want to make money from what we do, wait, let me close the windows, too much noise. It's better. When we decide that we want to make money from the things that we do, when we decide that our happiness lies in the trading of what makes us feel good and giving that out to someone else to bring into their world under the transaction of money, then the greater good is transferred from. My electricity just went out. But you're the greater good, so I'm going to continue. We now transfer the greater good from ourselves to the people that we want to enjoy the things that were once things that we enjoyed by ourselves under the guise of a transaction and a business name. And that can sometimes stir up more imposter syndrome, because now we realize that we put ourselves in the marketplace. Yeah, like when we put ourselves in the marketplace, our doubts bubble up because now we know that there is free range to criticize us. We have now put ourselves in a position where we are going to be evaluated next to someone else who's either been doing it longer than we have, or who does it faster than we can, or who uses more luxurious materials in comparison to what we use. Now we're going to come down to scrutiny. And because as creators, you know this to be true, we put a lot of ourselves into the work that we do. We do not have the ability, or at least when we're starting out, we lack the skill to understand that when somebody judges what we've created, they're not judging us as a person, they're judging the thing that we have made. But because we've put ourselves into the thing that we have made, or a little essence of ourselves, we take that on personally. And not wanting to be criticized or judged, I think, is a natural human desire. I don't want to be criticized for what I do, right? And then we can sometimes get a bit defensive and say, hey, you know what? I just started this for fun, you know. People need to realize I don't have a team around me like this big company does. It's me, one in my studio, busting this thing out to give to you. All of those kind of like defense mechanisms spring up. And then we realize we're sitting right slap down, bang, in the middle of imposter syndrome, and we have to make another decision when we get there. Do we freeze and stop what we're doing, or do we find a way to work around it? Well, let's take this video for example. I'm going to use video creation. I could have used any example in the process of being an artist, more specifically a fashion designer, building a brand, opening an online store, costing my products, putting myself out there, being viewed by the public. I could have used any one of those steps in my process to talk about imposter syndrome as context to deliver this message to you. But I feel like sometimes as artists, when things are a little close to home, it's difficult to always extract what's really being said to you. Also, making this video is my current point of imposter syndrome feeling. It's fresh, and I feel like I can talk about that a little bit more clearly off the cuff, remember, because I'm doing this video off the cuff, than rooting back into my history and trying to find the words to make sense about what I'm about to say. So I'm picking making a video. So I feel like it's a situation that you could understand or even relate to as an example of ways that you can attack this. So here goes. Here were all the split second issues I had with turning this camera on and just recording what was in my head. Yes, I am very good at just talking. Like when I feel like I'm in complete alignment, like my frequency is like unparalleled, I can just start talking about a subject just like that. I've done it before and I do really well. So that's a reason to turn on the camera and just go. But you know, on the flip side of that, I'm really good at doing that with audio. When I turn on the camera, suddenly you're aware of your surroundings, you're aware of the way you look, and it can somehow it just knocks me like I'm looking at you. And in my peripheral vision, I'm looking at my background, right? Because I'm using the forward facing camera. So I'm aware that whenever I talk, I have to look into this really small circle into the camera, which is you. And I have to make sure that there's enough light and that I have a good background. And all of those things can become bigger than me just turning the camera on and talking to you about imposter syndrome. But they're good reasons, right? Because the lighting has to be a certain, you know, lightiness in order for you to see me. It has to be lightiness, brightness. There then has to be a certain level of brightness for you to be able to see me clearly. The audio has to be good, but my oven was on earlier. Thankfully, during the filming of this video, my electricity just went out, so I don't have to worry about that now. Where I'm sitting, the position of the camera. Do I need to be further back? Do I need to be further forward? They're all really necessary factors for making a really good video. But are all those factors more important than me talking about imposter syndrome with you and possibly helping you to look at it in a different way? What's more important? All of those things or giving you this information? So where I am now, this is me having to decide, where do I put the greater good? Over here or over here? Now, there are times when I make myself the greater good, and in those moments, even though I don't have to deal with the imposter syndrome anymore, you know, that kind of like the pressure of doubt and that stuff, I don't have to deal with it. But it means that I didn't execute something. And at some point, I will be bugged by it enough to think about it differently, do it again, and then eventually put something out. Now, in that moment, when I had to decide where the greater good went, I said to myself, how about we just press record and see how it goes? And that's what I did. I didn't try to answer the question. I just executed it to see how it goes. Secretly knowing that it's probably going to come out okay. It's probably not going to be too bad. And as a good editor, I can probably stitch this together so it makes a lot of sense. Now, if I had decided in this moment that this was not the time to give the greater good to you and it was better to give the greater good to me, in order for me to make peace with that, which is what I'm always trying to do, which is the way I always try to attack anything that's making me feel doubtful or fearful. I always say to myself, hey, you know what? It's okay to be feeling like this, because either it's my first time doing something or I've done it before in the past and it didn't feel good. And if I wasn't meant to feel these feelings, then these feelings wouldn't come up. They really wouldn't. Like at that, like they wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be able to feel the feelings if I wasn't meant to feel them. So as soon as I allow myself to be a little bit more compassionate towards the way I'm feeling, as soon as I'm like, hey, this is okay. You know, let's just sit in this. It's okay. I feel a great sense of relief. Not all at once, but like little bit by little bit, I feel better and better and better. And then eventually I get to the point where in a few days or a few weeks, I'll have a moment where I want to do that thing again. And I'll make a decision based in that moment and how I am feeling. And if I'm lucky, I will remember, because sometimes I don't remember. I'll remember the compassion that I showed myself in the past, and that will help fuel a decision about whether or not I'm going to do this thing right here, right now. Imposter syndrome probably needs a different name, because I feel like if we named it something different, we would look at it different. And really and truly, feeling as though we are not ready to do something probably means that we're not ready to do it. And that's okay too. I mean, doesn't everything happen for a reason? And isn't that reason always you? And doesn't everything happen because of you and not to you? But aren't we sometimes too clouded by what's going on to really recognize that we are the creator of our own experience? And doesn't it sometimes get confusing when you think, well, yeah, I can create this experience, but wouldn't I always choose to be successful? And doesn't it seem weird that you would choose contrast? You would choose to not be successful sometimes? Yeah, it does seem weird. But really and truly, there's a yin to every yang. So the same desire you have to accomplish things, there's an equal and opposite desire for you not to, in order for you to truly understand who you are and what your intentions are, to strengthen them, to reevaluate them, and inevitably to understand your purpose. So I say sometimes you need to be an imposter. Sometimes you need to go through the syndrome. It's okay, it's natural, and it's needed, especially if you're putting something that you love, something that you've touched, and something that you've made out there into the universe for someone else to enjoy, who may not truly know the backstory of what it took for you to make that thing available to them. I think this video is going to turn out just fine. I'm feeling pretty proud of myself. I'll put a link to all the sites that I mentioned in this video below wherever you're watching this video. But I gotta go and sort out this electricity. I gotta top it up. So, oh, no. No. I need my phone. I need the phone to top up my electricity, so